as your data estate grows, finding the right assets, meaning the ones that truly matter to your domain, becomes more and more difficult. With me today, I have Stef, who is a senior product manager at Databricks, and he is going to tell us Databricks' approach to solving this problem. Stef, before you give us a demo, let's start off with an overview of Databricks' Discover and Domains features.
Yeah, so what we hear from our customers is that, as you said, their data estates are growing exponentially. But what that means in practice is that finding the things that actually matter to them on a day-to-day basis gets harder and harder. So our answer to that is the Discover and the Domains experiences. The Discover page is meant to serve as an internal marketplace, allowing you to effortlessly browse the high-quality, valuable assets that are available to you within your account. The Domains experience is layered on top of the Discover experience. So what Domains allow you to do is to actually organize your assets in a way that mirrors and maps to how your business is actually structured. So you could imagine you have a finance team. You want to make it very easy for that finance team to find all of the high-quality finance tables, finance dashboards, finance Genie spaces. What Domains allows you to do is to group all of those assets into that domain such that any member of your finance team can then go into the Discover page, click on the finance domain, and browse all of the valuable finance assets that they might then want to use.
I know you mentioned it a little bit right now, but more specifically, how does it overlap and how is it different than Genie, which is very much connected to discoverability and finding the right data, etc.?
Yeah, it's a great question. Genie does a really good job at helping you find a specific thing that you already have in mind. So for example, let's say I am a member of the finance team. I want to do a revenue analysis for a particular product line. I can ask Genie, and Genie does a good job at translating my vague intent, my vague query, and identifying the right asset that I probably have to want to use for that use case. What Discover does is twofold. First of all, Discover serves more as an open-ended shopping experience. So if I don't have a specific thing in mind, for example, again, I am a member of the finance team. I don't want to see all the finance tables that are available to me. Discover makes it very easy for me to just browse all of the finance-related assets that I might be interested in using. The second important piece of context here is that, as I mentioned earlier, Discover allows you to organize your assets into these domains that actually map to how your business is structured. And those domains actually serve as very valuable context for Genie as well. So you could imagine that if you have a very well-populated finance domain in Discover, Genie will then understand that as context. So the responses within Genie will then get even smarter. You can ask Genie, what do we have related to finance? Genie will understand, hey, we have this domain called finance. Here's all the tables that have been explicitly added to this finance domain, which means they're high quality, they're valuable, and then it'll use that context to provide higher quality responses.
So with that said, I know this is a very practical feature, so let's jump into the demo.
The Discover page is accessible through the new Discover entry point in the left-hand nav. Clicking on it will navigate you to the Discover landing page. And in this case, as you can see, I can browse by a number of domains that have already been created and populated by the curators within my workspace. In this case, I can see that a number of domains have already been created, such as sales data, customer usage data, supply chain data, and this is really meant to make it easier for the members of your account to browse contents, find high-quality assets based on the part of the business, the area of the business that they operate on. So for example, if I'm a member of the supply chain team, I could click on the supply chain domain, and I'm able to see all of the assets that have been organized and added to this domain. At the top of this domain, I'll see the name of the domain, I'll see the technical owner, I'll see the business owner, so I know who to reach out to if I have any questions about the contents of that domain. I also see a rich description. This has been customized and created by the technical and or business owner of that domain. But this is really intended to give those domain stewards, those domain curators, the ability to provide any detail that they think might be helpful for the people of their workspace, for the members of their organization, as they browse the contents and familiarize themselves with the contents of that domain. As I scroll through this, I can see there's a list of all of the assets that have been added to this domain. And at the top, as you'll notice, there's also an experience that allows you to browse by subdomain. So some domains might be too broad, right? Supply chain, for example, is a very, very broad topic. And there might be a lot of different areas within the supply chain umbrella. Examples being logistics, procurement, inventory. What subdomains allow you to do is to break up a subdomain into those more granular areas. So for example, I might be a member of the supply chain team, but I might be focused on the inventory aspect of supply chain. I see that there's a subdomain called inventory. I click on that, and then I can see the contents that have been added to that inventory part of the supply chain domain. So it gives me a more focused browsing experience based on what I'm looking for.
So that's the way that you consume what's available in the Discover section. What about the actual prep work? How do curators actually build and organize all of these things? How do you do that?
Yeah, great question. So we've built a pretty rich domain creation and customization experience. So as a curator who wants to create a new domain for a new business area or for a new team within my organization, we've introduced this domain creation flow. So at the right side of the Discover page, users who have the ability to create a domain will see the Create Domain button. So as a curator, I have the ability to create domains. So the Create Domain modal is where I specify all of the details of my new domain. Domains under the hood are built on top of governed tags. So in order to create a domain, I either have to select an existing governed tag that I want to represent my domain, or I can create a new governed tag to represent my domain. So in this scenario, let's say I want to create a new domain that represents shoe inventory. I'm going to create a new tag called shoe inventory to represent that domain, and this will be the name of my domain as seen by the members of my workspace. I can select an icon if I want, so I can also select a color that I want to associate with that domain to create some more visible differentiation between the different domains in my Discover experience. And then I can also specify things like a subtitle. A subtitle is intended to be a quick one-line TLDR of what that domain is, really helping your consumers just understand what's in that domain, how it might be used, and just to understand whether it's relevant to them. So in this case, I might give it a subtitle like, I might say that this domain contains data sets related to shoe inventory. That's the TLDR that I want to give my consumers. And then in the description section, I can provide a more comprehensive amount of detail, that as little or as much as I would like. And this is the description that people are going to see once they click into a domain. So I can do a number of things here. I could, for example, say, if you have any questions related to shoe inventory, use this domain. It contains, and then I can, for example, enumerate dashboards showing inventory by shoe model, data sets that allow more comprehensive shoe inventory analysis. I can also say Genie spaces that allow for natural language querying. And then I can also add hyperlinks if I would like. I can add different snippets, cells. And then I can also specify the technical and the business context for this domain. So the technical contact is really intended to be that point person that you can go to if you have any questions about the contents of that domain. So in this case, I might specify Chihua as the technical contact. And when I create that and save that, Chihua will be displayed as the technical owner for this domain. So anyone browsing that domain knows to ping him if they have any questions. And then you can also specify the business contact. And these have to be members of your workspace, of your account, rather. And the business contact is meant to be that point person that you can contact if you have any questions around the assets that are within that domain, what the different terms mean, how you might use the contents of that domain, and so on and so forth. Once I've created the domain, I'm then taken to that domain's page. So as you can see, right now it's in draft mode. I have yet to publish it. But you see that the icon is the icon that I selected. The name is the name that I gave the domain. You can see the technical owner and the business owner that I've specified for that domain. And then you see a condensed version of the description that I provided with the option to expand it and see the full description. As a curator, I'm also responsible for making sure that I'm actually populating this domain with valuable assets. So in this case, as you can see, there are no assets that are in this domain yet. If I click Add to Domain, I am then taken to the asset selector, where then I can browse my workspace file system, I can browse Unity Catalog, and I can select the things that I want to add to that domain. So for example, let's say I have this inventory analysis notebook that I want to feature in that domain. I select it, click Add to Domain, and then it is added to my domain. In order for the people of my workspace, in order for the members of my workspace to actually be able to start browsing this domain, you have to make sure to hit the Publish button. Once you click Publish, that domain is then published and available for the members of your workspace to find and browse via the Discover page.
When it comes to access, how does it work in terms of who can see what domains are out there, as well as does having access to a domain mean that I have access to the underlying data or the underlying assets like Genie? Or are those permissions still fully respected?
So the Discover page respects your current permissions. So if you click onto a domain, you will only see the contents of that domain that you already have permissions for. You will never see anything that you don't already have permissions for. When it comes to the actual granular control over who can and who can't see a domain, the way that it works today is that if a domain is created, then anyone can see it on the Discover page. But again, if they click into that domain, they would only ever see the contents of that domain that they already have permissions for. In the future, we may look into providing some more granular visibility controls for domains. So you could imagine maybe you have certain domains that you only want certain members of your company to see. We may introduce some additional capabilities that provide some of that more fine-grained visibility controls in the future.
Stef, I know that as of today, this is in beta, and today being May 27th, 2026, when should people expect that it's going to become public preview?
We're looking to get this into public preview as quickly as possible, hopefully by June, by the end of June 2026. Stay tuned. We'll give you all an update when we're there.
Sounds good. Thank you so very much for your time, Stef.
Thank you.